கண்டிப்பாக காயல.
ஏய், அரைஞ்சிருவேன். முத்துமாச்சி வீட்டுக்கு அனுப்பி விட்டுருவேன் நான்.
அப்படின்னா அப்புறம் என்ன செய்ய முடியும்?
அக்கா, ஸ்ட்ரீம் ஆரம்பிச்சிட்டேன். எவ்வளோ கஷ்டப்பட்டு ஏதோ வந்திருக்கு. நான் உங்களுக்கு இப்போ அனுப்பி விட்றேன். ஓகே, நான் சாட்லேயே போட்டுறேனே. ம், ஓகே. ஜூம் வேண்டாம் வேண்டாம், நான் போட்டேன். லைவ் ஆரம்பிச்சிட்டேன். இப்போ எதில் நான் அனுப்ப? நிவேதானா உங்களுக்கு அனுப்புகிறேன். நிவேதாக்கு அனுப்பிடுவீங்களா? இப்போ எதில் நான் அனுப்ப? நிவேதானா உங்களுக்கு அனுப்புகிறேன். நிவேதாக்கு அனுப்பிடுவீங்களா? எதில் நான் அனுப்ப? நிவேதானா உங்களுக்கு அனுப்புகிறேன். நிவேதாக்கு அனுப்பிடுவீங்களா?
Ma'am, can you confirm whether my PPT is visible or not?
Yes, sir, your PPT is visible.
But I'm not able to see it. Okay, now it's visible, right?
Yes, sir. The screen is visible. Now the screen is visible.
PPT.
Nation as a religion.
Yes.
Nation. Yes, sir.
You're able to see multiple slides, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I will stop sharing. I just wanted to check.
Okay. Ma'am. Yes, Angel.
Oke, masih relate lah. Oke, masih relate lama. Mami lapor di.
Ini enak karena apa? Jajan tadi.
Itu juga kecil.
Ada ya, kalau dia.
You come in? Okay. I was searching you, sir. நான் கூகுள் மீட்டோட ஆமாம் பார்த்துட்டேன். நான் கூகுள் மீட்டை லைவ் பண்ணியிருக்கேன் சார். ரொம்ப கஷ்டப்பட்டு காலையிலேருந்து உட்காந்து ஓபிஎஸ் மூலமாக ஐ ஹவ் மேட் இட் லைவ். ஸோ ஐ கேன் ஷேர் யூ வித் யூடியூப் ஆல்சோ. ஐ டூ இட் நவ்.
Good evening. A hearty welcome to one and all. Thank you for joining us for the 7-day International Faculty Development Webinar Series on a global humanity and in literature. Small tea and great welcome makes a merry feast. I invite Dr. I. Angelan Priya, head of the department, to extend a gracious welcome on behalf of our college.
Thank you, ma'am. A warm good evening to all present here for the 7-day International Faculty Development Webinar Series. Greetings to you all on behalf of Holy Cross Home Science College, Thuthukudi. Our Tuticorin is famous for Pearl and also famous for the best education to the youth. Our college is one among them, giving quality education to the younger generation. Today, let me start this 7-day International Faculty Development Webinar Series by welcoming our Lord Almighty and praise Him for His blessings. Then I would like to welcome our guest of honor for this inaugural meet, Dr. B. Bennison Christos, Associate Professor, St. John's College, Kolengote. He has more than 25 years of experience in the field of educating the youth. He had attended 4 refresher courses and also chaired and organized 18 workshops and conferences. Dr. B. Bennison is one of the best speakers with full of resources both in education field and also in religious field. He gave hundreds of lectures in various institutions and now I feel proud to have him as a chief guest for our inaugural program. Happy to welcome you, sir. Next, I would like to welcome our today's speaker, Dr. Kritam, Assistant Professor in English, Jain University, Bangalore. And he is giving training to CAT aspirants. He had presented 27 national and international conferences. He is having 12 years of teaching and training experience in verbal aptitude and CAT and other competitive examinations. Also, he trained IT and non-IT professionals. Such a great aspirant is with us now to share his ideas on the topic Nation as Illusion is reflected in the novels of Amitav Ghosh. Hence, I give a warm welcome to you, sir. Also, I give honor to our principal and secretary, Reverend Dr. Sister Mary Gilda, who is our backbone for all our activities. Wholeheartedly, I welcome you, sister, and thank you for the encouragement given to us to begin this webinar process. Also, I would like to welcome our Vice Principal and IKC Coordinator, Mrs. Sita Satyalakshmi Ma'am, to this international webinar. Welcome you, ma'am. Next, I would like to welcome the speakers for the 7-day International Faculty Development Webinar Series. Dr. Christy Poland, Assistant Professor, Bishop Colwood College, Tuticorin. She is my great friend and guide to organize this webinar. Welcome you, ma'am. Also, Dr. Rachel John, Assistant Professor, St. Joseph College, Kozhikode. Dr. Nilachana Chatterjee, Durgapur Government College, West Bengal. Dr. Nila, Research Guide and Professor, Mercy College, Palakkad, Kerala. Dr. Olfa Gando, Assistant Professor of Science and Humanities, Al-Kharj, Saudi Arabia. And Dr. Buona, Assistant Professor in English, Providence College, Kunu. Welcome you all, distinguished dignitaries. On behalf of the Department of English, Holy Cross Home Science College, Thoothukudi. Last but not the least, I welcome all the participants from various institutions and from various countries who showed their interest and participating in this program. A small cheer and great welcome makes a merry feast. Once again, I welcome you all, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It's my pleasure to invite Dr. Reverend Sister Mary Gilda, Principal and Secretary of Holy Cross Home Science College, to deliver the Presidential Address.
Good evening, dear friends. Good evening to all of you. Am I audible? Dr. Angel, am I audible?
Yes,
sister.
yes,
Good evening.
You are audible.
Yeah, good evening, friends. Excellence is never accidental. It is a gradual result of striving for a better future. The topic chosen on a global humanity endeavor in literature will lead you for a greater expression of your human nature. I am not very much familiar with the topic, but I do understand that the topic chosen will enlighten the participant to study the ancient and modern languages, literature, philosophy, history, law, religion, and the role of humanity in literature and society. I do understand that at the global level, the literature had played a very important role, making us all more humane and dream for a better tomorrow. Dear friends, education is not filling of a pail, but lighting of a fire. And this fire has to continue spreading its flame with whom it comes in contact. I know the literature faculties are always with fire burning in the hearts of the students' community. We all know life has its own way of offering the fruits of success. One of the greatest gifts that God has given to the language faculties are your ability to learn, to update, to display your capacities and talents. You are always vibrant individuals. The various events like faculty development program, webinar that are organized during this lockdown, and especially this 7 days faculty development program will enable the faculties and every individual to excel, to improve your academic performance, and to be more creative in your specialization as you are born for this. So my special appreciation to Dr. Angeline Priya, the vibrant HOD of English department of our college, Dr. Malali Yazoda, the silent observer, Dr. Christy Pauline, who had been a backbone helping Dr. Angeline to organize this program, and Dr. Bennison, a friend of our institution and who is working as an associate professor in St. John's College, and he is not new to us, he is highly in association with our institution. And my special welcome to Dr. Preetham, Assistant Professor, Jain University, Bangalore. So, and to all the eminent resource person whom we will be listening for the days to come, I thank you for accepting our invitation and I welcome you to enlighten the faculties at the international level. May you all have pleasant time during these 7 days, sharing of your knowledge with one another, which will enable us to grow further. So wish you all the best, dear friends, and over to Mrs. Satyalakshmi to deliver a felicitation address. Thank you, and may God bless all of you. Thank you, dear friends.
Thank you, sister.
So, good evening, everybody. Honorable Principal, distinguished speakers of 7 days Faculty Development Program, young and energetic head of the department, Dr. Angeline Priya, my dear colleagues and friends. I take it as a great honor and privilege to felicitate the webinar series on a global humanity endeavor in literature. The importance of this webinar series is to nurture talent and to upgrade your knowledge in literature. I feel happy that the Department of English, under the able leadership of Dr. Angeline Priya, has taken initiative to organize this international webinar series for the faculties of English to discuss on the most interesting topics. I welcome all the participants and wish you all a great, interesting 7 days full of enrichment for your knowledge. Let me conclude by wishing that every one of you will carry back from this webinar series some great views and thoughts about global humanity endeavor in literature. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Now, it's time to hear the inaugural address by Dr. B. Bennison. Over to Dr. B. Bennison.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir,
You're audible.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.
Good
Thanks
afternoon,
for
Bennison, sir. Good afternoon.
very, very great evening this is going to be. I'm really amazed to see the number of participants here. There are 100, and I'm sure that this will cross 100 in a few minutes. Whatever it may be, a few more or to join in the days to come. On behalf of the participants and everyone here, I would like to record my word of appreciation to the principal, the head of the department, Dr. Christie, and all the other staff members, our own colleagues here. They have done a wonderful time during these pandemic days. They have not let us down, I would say, right in the beginning of my speech, because when people are very busy these days, involving in so many other activities, they have brought us all together this evening under this one program, and they will, I'm sure that they will enrich, they will give us a wonderful intellectual feast in the days to come, and also in the program that we have today. Various elements of literature, whether it is tragedy, or whether it is an epic, or whether it is a comedy, or whether it is an essay, or the other forms, novels or poems, whatever it could be, they all serve as the points of connection between life and literature. Connection between life and life. Life and nation. Man and woman. Man and science. Man and so many other things. When we read, we can understand that. This is literature is just a connection between these fields. It's very simple. It's very simple. They either present life or criticize life. They really have an impulse toward moral evaluation, sometimes based on the application of psychological knowledge to art. Sometimes they expose the social atmosphere and define the relationship between a race and a race, a clan and a clan, a man and a man, a woman and a man and a woman, a man and nature itself. Literature in general throws light on the moral position of a society. When I use the word moral, we should not simply have the traditional idea of moral. This is something different. Moral attitude, moral understanding of human beings, towards nature, towards his own society, towards his own people, towards the animals, towards the birds, towards family, towards individual on many occasions. They even go to the extent of reflecting on the contemporary dissatisfaction with the scientific concept of man. Man thinks that he is becoming more scientific day by day. Gone are the days when we were thinking about the stories our ancestors have told us. In those days, when I was a small boy, I used to recall the stories told by my grandparents, by my friends, by my leaders, spiritual leaders in the church, by my other friends around me. These stories will be living in my mind for a longer time. They taught me so many things. I mean, the story as a whole. The story as a whole. But these are the days where and when people like you and me, learned people like you and me, maybe one or two exceptions here, we have gone in search of the other aspects of the novel, the other aspects of a drama, the other aspects of a poem, the other aspects of an essay. To put it in a phrase, various elements of literature from different angles. For that, we have the tools in our hand. In other words, the theories in our hand. I have been observing this throughout. First, my scholars around me, my people around me, even the teachers who teach English, language and literature, they concentrate more on the theory and they try to apply the theories that they have learned or studied or understood to the literary pieces they come across. We can have, this is my regret. I record this with a kind of a regret. They have the tools in their hand and they try to apply the tools to the literary words, various elements of literary words. Forget all the theories, forget all the tools, forget all the supportive materials. Let's first read a literary piece from the beginning till the end. Closing our eyes, that could disturb us in the form of theories or in the form of criticisms. Let's read the text, let's enjoy it. Because first and the foremost thing that we need to have in our hand is the literary piece as a whole. Because it teaches us to have a good relationship good fellowship, even sometimes friendship with the other world. Here, what I mean the other world is my world with someone's world, my world with nature, my world with the universe. But this is slowly going away. That's what I have understood. When we come back to the title of this 7-day program, it has been beautifully phrased, a global humanity endeavor in literature. Nowadays, human touch is going away. People say that I am a PhD holder. Some say that I have read 400 volumes, 500 novels, something like that. But they have failed to love their own neighbors. They have failed to look at the doorstep Lazarus. They have failed to have a closer relationship with the other people, maybe people in the next door. Slowly, something has cut into our mind. Slowly, something prevents us from loving them, caring them, taking a part of their sufferings. Maybe sometimes religion plays sometimes a vital role. Maybe sometimes the caste is there, casteism, right? Sometimes regionalism, sometimes the language. Oh, I'm a Tamilian. He is a Malayali. He is a something like that. Something prevents us, something stops us. But as a whole, human nature is distorted. When God created heaven and the earth, He saw everything on the seventh day. He saw everything good. But man has started to have his own fragments, his own partitions. When I saw somebody is going to present a talk on Amitav Ghosh's novels, I felt it. These unseen shadow lines prevent us from having a closer relationship with our own friends. Suppose I'm sick. I'm admitted in the hospital. I need 3 units of blood. Do I have any prescription for that? Oh, I need to have a unit of blood from a Tamilian, from this particular caste, from this particular religion, from this particular area. No, that is a life-saving unit. So when we look at that in that way, there is some moral aspect in it. I happen to see a person in the hospital. He is in need of a unit of blood. My blood may not match him, but I give that unit to the hospital people. They substitute with that unit some other blood that is in need or that is needed by this man. They give him, he gets life again. This is what we have been learning from the stories, the moral aspects. That's why I said the various elements of literature, they serve as points of connection between an individual and the other parts. I think I need not go beyond that. You can understand. We have forgotten the human endeavor. We have forgotten the human touch. We say that we belong to the society A. We say that we belong to the society of this rank. But if we don't have a passion to help others, to love others in the words of Christ Jesus, love your neighbor as you love yourself. If I don't meet out the need of a person who is badly in need of something, what is there in my education? So here, somebody is going to talk on nation as illusion. I was really fascinated by this phrase. Nation as illusion. This is the most needed thing nowadays. In the name of religion, in the name of politics, in the name of language, in the name of so many other things, we are slowly, consciously or unconsciously, knowingly or unknowingly, purposefully or without any purpose, we are being slowly divided. I'm sure that literature teaches us humanity. Literature teaches us to take care of the people around us. Literature teaches us to take care of our own society, our own family, our own friends. Look at the second one, a graphic description of conflict. Conflict is everywhere. Conflict is everywhere. But there is a solution in literature. I am sitting in the midst of my library. I have around 4,000 volumes. All the writers are consultants for me. All the writers are consultants for me. Suppose I take Thomas Hardy. Suppose I take Chetan Bhagat. Suppose I take Anita Desai. Suppose I take some other writer. Every writer has recorded his or her own understanding of life through some of the characters. That's why I said literature is the point of connection between life and life, life and literature, life and nature, man and science, and many more. My friends here, my dear research scholars, my dear learned people here, if literature doesn't serve in this way to understand the other human being, to look at the other human being as our own brothers and sisters, look at nature as God-given part of our life, I'm sorry, we failed somewhere in literature and a student of literature. But I believe and I hope that this 7-day webinar on this particular wonderful topic, a global humanity endeavor in literature, will make us sail on and through the unexposed and unexcavated areas of literary pieces. All the resource persons I find here will surely and certainly throw light on the importance of life, not the so-called illusionary theories, because don't get angry with me. Illusion. Today, one theory dominates the literary world. Tomorrow, some other theory will dominate the literary world. And day after tomorrow, yesterday's and today's theories are out of date. But humanity, human touch, human life is valuable. So, with my best wishes, I expect each and every one of you to have a good time with the resource persons here and with the organizing committee, the team. It's a wonderful team. It's a combination of learned people from different places. Usually when we organize a program, we have people from our own department alone. But this webinar is a collection of, it's something like a collection of sweet-smelling fragrance or sweet-smelling flowers collected from different plants. With these words, I wish you all the best. Have a good time. I'm happy to inaugurate this. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your inaugural address.
Welcome, ma'am.
Now, we will turn the time over to Dr. K. Preetham, Assistant Professor of English, CMS Jain University, Bangalore, on the topic Nation as Illusion as reflected in the novels of Amitav Ghosh.
Yes, because of some network problem, we will have the vote of thanks, and afterwards we will have the day one speech by Dr. A. Preetham. So now over to Dr. Margaret Yasuda to give the vote of thanks. Yes. Yes, now the freedom Dr.
Respected and distinguished chief guest of the day, Dr. B. Bennison, Honorable Principal, Dr. Reverend Sister Mary Gilda, Honorable Speaker, Dr. K. Preetham, Respected Vice Principal,
1 minute.
Mrs. S. Satyalakshmi ma'am, my beloved HOD, and my dear colleagues, and everyone who gathered here, good evening to you all.
Because I'm not able to get you.
It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks and acknowledge the contribution of those who worked really hard to make this faculty development program happen. First of all, I extend my most sincere thanks to the Almighty God for making today's event a resounding success. I must mention our deep sense of gratitude and appreciation for the speaker, Dr. K. Preetham, Assistant Professor of English, Jain University, Bangalore. I also wish to express my gratitude to our Honorable Principal, Dr. Reverend Sister Mary Gilda, for providing encouragement and support. My heartfelt thanks to our chief guest, Dr. B. Bennison, Associate Professor of St. John's College, Palayamkottai. My sincere thanks to all the speakers of the 7-day series. I would like to express my thanks to our Vice Principal, Satyalakshmi ma'am. I would like to thank our HOD, Dr. Angeline Priya. I would like to thank our faculty members. I thank all the participants. My heartiest thanks to all the participants for their active participation in this event. Once again, I thank one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yashoda. Now it's time to hear our ideas of Dr. Preetham about Amitav Ghosh. Welcome, Dr. Preetham. It's over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Please confirm whether I am audible and visible. I will be presenting the PPT. Please confirm whether it's visible or not. So
yes, your voice is audible, sir.
Yes, sir. Just a second, I will present the PPT.
Okay.
Could you please confirm whether you can see my PPT or not?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, a very good evening to all the respected faculty members, research scholars, and interested students. I first of all thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to deliver my talk as a resource person in this 7-day international webinar series on global humanity underlying literature, which is very much relevant for today. So the topic that I've chosen is Nation as an Illusion as reflected in the novels of Amitav Ghosh, which is in tune with the theme of this international faculty development webinar series. So I am K. Preetham, Assistant Professor of English, Center for Management Studies, JNU University, Bengaluru. So this is the layout of my presentation. First, I will be dealing with the biography of Amitav Ghosh and certain conceptual understanding of Edward Said's Orientalism, Nation and Nationalism of Benedict Anderson, concepts of partition, diaspora, and migration. And I will be touching upon these novels where I will be briefing you a summary of these novels and how it is related to the concept of nation. So about Amitav Ghosh, he is an Indian writer and the winner of the 54th Jnanapita Award, and he is best known for his work in English fiction. He was born in Calcutta on 11 July 1956 and was educated at the all-boys boarding school, the Doon School in Dehradun. He grew up in India, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. So his life experiences has prompted him to be more diasporic in nature, or his works are influenced by his biography also. His contemporaries at Doon includes author Vikram Seth and historian Ramchandra Guha. So because of this contact, most of his works have historical elements. While at school, he regularly contributed fiction and poetry to the Doon School Weekly and founded the magazine History Times along with Guha. He received degrees from St. Stephen's College, Delhi and Delhi School of Economics. He won the INLAC's Foundation Scholarship to complete a DPhil in Social Anthropology at St. Edmund Hall, Oxford, under the supervision of British social anthropologist Peter Linard. The thesis undertaken in the Faculty of Anthropology and Geography was entitled Kinship in Relation to Economic and Social Organization in an Egyptian Village Community and submitted in 1982. And he continued his studies in Delhi, Oxford and Alexandria. So my talk will last for around 60 minutes because I will be dealing in detail about the critical interpretations of these novels and how they are related to the concepts that I will be discussing. So I'll be just summing up his biographical aspects. He started working in Indian Express, then he went on to be a fellow in Center for Studies in Social Sciences, then joined Queen's College, City University of New York, and he is also a visiting professor of English department at Harvard University. And when he returned back to India, he worked on his Ibis trilogy. He won the Padma Shri Award in 2007, and in 2009 he was elected the Fellow of Royal Society in Literature. So these are the novels that I will be touching upon: The Circle of Reason, The Shadow Lines, The Calcutta Chromosome, The Glass Palace, The Hungry Tide, Sea of Poppies, River of Smoke, Flood of Fire, Gun Island. So in these novels I will be exploring how the concept of nation is described by Amitav Ghosh. Non-fiction I will not be touching upon it. So why one should understand the concept of Orientalism, nation or nationalism, diaspora, migration and partition? Because in all his novels, Amitav Ghosh has discussed one topic or the other. So what does Edward Said's Orientalism say? Orientalism is the exaggeration of difference, the presumption of Western superiority, and the application of cliched analytical models of perceiving the Orient world. The word Orientalism refers to at least three separate but interrelated meanings. It could be an academic tradition, or a worldview or representation, or a powerful political instrument of domination. So Amitav Ghosh uses the third aspects to a very great extent. Next concept is nation or nationalism by Benedict Anderson. So Benedict Anderson opines that nations are imagined communities. So why he says it as imagined communities? Because people in a nation do not meet one another, it's just an imagined one. According to Anderson's theory of imagined communities, the main causes of nationalism are the increasing importance of mass vernacular literacy, the movement to abolish the ideas of rule by divine right and hereditary monarchy, and the emergence of printing press capitalism, all phenomena occurring with the start of the Industrial Revolution. Nations are imagined communities because nations are socially constructed. For Anderson, the idea of nation is relatively new and is a product of various social material forces. He defined a nation as an imagined political community and imagined as both inherently limited and sovereign. Finally, a nation is a community because, regardless of the actual inequality and exploitation that may prevail in each, the nation is always conceived as a deep, horizontal comradeship. Ultimately, it is this fraternity that makes it possible over the past 2 centuries for so many millions of people not so much to kill as willingly to die for such limited meanings. So here Amitav Ghosh explores how for many people, especially people who are in the lower state of the society, the very concept of nation doesn't matter. Either because of poverty or forceful eviction, they are forced out of the nation. Then coming to partition as we find lots of partition literature. It could be based on the partition in Ireland, India, Palestine, and even because of the Cold Wars. Then diaspora, India is one of the Indians form one of the major diaspora across the world after China, Chinese. So diaspora is a world phenomena. They are relatively exclusive communities, various alien places with an identity, founded in national or transnational network and nostalgia for their homeland, which might exist in their fantasy. When we think of Indian diaspora, there is a notion of old and new diasporas, and it is not to isolate communities. The old diaspora has become part of the new through remigration. For example, Fiji Indians moving to Vancouver or Trinidadian Indians to Toronto, undergoing further transformation. It illustrates the destructive consequences of racism seen as a continuous process where the oppressed suffer so badly that his or her only knowledge of dealing with life is to discriminate others in the same way. Thus, the process of discrimination, internalization, and projection seems to be a continuous process where each factor is closely linked to others. The final concept that one should be aware is migration. Migrant literature often focuses on social context in the migrant's country of origin, which prompt them to leave on the experience of migration itself, on the mixed reception which they may receive in the country of arrival, on experiences of racism or hostility, and on the sense of rootlessness and the search for identity which can result from displacement and cultural diversity. Most of the novels written by Amitav Ghosh focus on displacement and cultural diversity. So the first novel that I am going to discuss is The Circle of Reason by Amitav Ghosh. This is his debut novel. Amitav Ghosh is known for creating rich literature out of the blind spots of history. So written published in 1986, it's a debut novel, is a saga of flight and pursuit, which chronicles the adventure of Alu, a young master weaver and an orphan, whose journey spans across many years and continents. Alu's foster father enlists him as a soldier to fight against the forces. This is why I discussed about the concept of nation and partition. But he is soon suspected of terrorism and is being forced to run away from his village. He travels from Calcutta to Goa and boards a fishing trawler that illegally shipped immigrants to Africa. While being chased from Bengal to Bombay and on through the Persian Gulf to North Africa by a bird-watching police inspector, all is right. So when you read this novel, you get to know that people, especially at the lower state of the society, are forced out of the country. Either it could be because of political reasons, economic reasons, or social reasons. So for them, the concept of nation itself is a myth, because for them, survival itself is the main thing. Anu encounters along the way a cast of characters as various and as colorful as epithets with which the author adorns them. The reader is drawn into their lives by incidents, tender and outrageous, and all compellingly told. Ghosh is as natural a weaver of words as Alu is of cloth, deftly interlacing humor and wisdom to produce a narrative tapestry of surpassing beauty. The novel has historical as well as mythological elements, and Ghosh won the Prix Medici Influencer Award for this book. So I'll just share a small video, 2-minute video related to this Circle of Reason, where Amitav Ghosh himself has elaborated on this. I'll just stop sharing this so that I can play the video. Is the video visible?
No, sir.
Pathetic childhood. My father was in government service, so he was.
You are only visible.
No. Video is not visible, is it?
Yes, sir. No. You are only visible.
Just a second.
Your face.
Light is
Is it visible now, ma'am?
No, sir. Your face is only visible, not presenting.
Okay. Stop it. Okay.
Preetham,
Okay,
you can
I will,
Preetham, if you want, you can WhatsApp to me now.
Video, it's actually the link.
Oh, video link. Video link will
It's
not
the
be.
link.
No,
Yeah,
but,
video link. Yeah. It's okay, ma'am. I will just present it. Not an issue.
okay.
You're able to see my PPT right now?
No, Preetham.
No, sir.
You can send me your PPT, Preetham. I can do it for you if you wish.
Yeah, just a second. Now, ma'am, is the PPT visible?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So later we'll be sharing the
Presentation
link.
is visible.
Yeah, okay, PPT, okay. Later we'll be sharing the link so that people can have a look at it. If it had been a visual one, it would have been better. Okay. So here in the circle of reason, we get to know that is what Amitav Ghosh also says, that for the poor, for the downtrodden, the concept of the nation doesn't matter because they keep moving across. So here one thing that we should understand is migration is not always because of the push. It's also because of the pull. Okay, there is positive aspects of migration and also the negative aspects of migration. See, Amitav Ghosh mainly focused on the negative aspects of migration, why people are forced to move to different places. The second text that I've chosen is The Shadow Lines by Amitav Ghosh again. It's a Sahitya Academy award-winning novel. The second novel focuses on the narrator's family in Calcutta and Dhaka and the connection with an English family in London. A boy conjures upon a picture of London so vivid in his imagination that he recognizes it when he visits years later and learns the real places can be invented inside your head. From Dhaka to London, his novel contains a wealth of characters and color. Set against the backdrop of historical events like the Swadeshi movement, Second World War, partition of India and communal riots of 1963 to 64 in Dhaka and Calcutta. The Shadow Lines is a funny yet moving story of a young boy who travels across time and boundaries through the memories and tales of people around him. The book's blur breeds, exposing the idea of nation-state as an illusion, an arbitrary dissection of people. Ghosh depicts the absurd manner in which your own can suddenly become your enemy. because many a times people live in borders, people live in coastal areas, either because of natural calamities or because of political factors, they are forced to move. So the very presence of there in the particular land or the coastal area becomes an enemy for them. The shadow line throws light on the phenomena of communal violence and the way its roots are spread deeply and widely in the collective psyche of the Indian subcontinent. Most of Amitav Ghosh's work deal with historical settings, especially in the Indian Ocean periphery. In an interview with Mahmoud Kurri, he said, "It was not intentional, but sometimes things are intentional without being intentional, though it was never part of a planned venture and did not begin as a conscious project. I realized in insight that this is really what always interested me most: the Bay of Bengal, the Arabian Sea, the Indian Ocean, and the connections and the cross connections between these regions." So one thing that is highlighted in Amitav Ghosh's works is main focus on the coastal areas. Ma'am, I will share this link in the Google chat. Please check whether it could be played or not. Ma'am, could you please check whether this YouTube could be shared or not? I will message in the Zoom
Okay,
chat.
sir. Okay,
Yeah.
sir, I'll check it.
Yes, sir. Because if it's video, it will have more impact. I've shared the link, ma'am. Of
Yes,
this,
sir.
please
Yes,
click on that and move to the 40th second. Move to the 40th second. Because only when it's a visual presentation, it will be more appropriate.
Then I have to present the screen?
Yes, ma'am. You have to share the screen. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The idea of India is changing.
Is the screen shared?
No single image can possibly capture the many energies, angers,
But I have
and
shared the
hopes
screen.
of a billion
Yeah, now
people
it's sharing.
today.
Now it's sharing. It shares your presenting. Yeah. Please move on to the 40th second.
While the
40th
riches of
second.
freedom have touched the lives of many,
And you can enter the
millions are still
2.25.
waiting.
No, start at 40th second.
There
I will tell you when to end.
Okay.
Yes. It's not audible, no?
Yes, for voice, what I have to do? For audio? So for audio, what I have to do?
So you have to increase the volume from in your laptop.
Yes, it's already 100%.
Okay. In the YouTube also.
Is YouTube also the volume is full?
Okay. I think Google Meet has an issue when playing audios and other things. If it had been Zoom, it would be appropriate.
Yes. Yes, you just explained the videos to us, sir.
So this is a description of how partition impacts the poor. So that is the reason why most of the poor fight for. Actually, this shadow lines is not actually the shadow lines written by Amitav Ghosh. It's the lines, shadow lines that is depicted or demanded by people staying across the borders, even outside India and within India also. Even within India, people demanding states on the basis of language. Okay, they wanted to have a separate state. For example, it was demand for Harit Pradesh, Vidarbha region, and Telangana. Now, why people want a separate state is because they feel that their needs are not met, their demands are not met, and they are denied their rightful opportunity. Yes, you can stop, man. I'll move on to the next. You can stop.
Okay. Shall I close it?
Yeah, you close it, ma'am. You close it. I will present.
No.
Amma.
Is my PPT visible, ma'am?
No, sir.
Mummy.
We are not present.
மெதுவா பேச முடியாது ஏன் மெதுவா பேச முடியும்
Now?
No? Yes, sir. Now only it comes.
Yeah, okay. So the next work is that of a Calcutta chromosome, though it's not politically related in terms of nation or as such, but the impact that it has international phenomena. So the Calcutta chromosome, published in 1996, is a medical thriller that navigates through time to begin in the future and follows the protagonist L. Murugan, who is in search of what he calls the Calcutta chromosome. A must-read for those looking for a classic read depicting the amalgamation of the Victorian era and contemporary India. This novel has been described as a kind of mystery thriller by India today. It brings together three searches. The first is that of an Egyptian clerk, Antar, working alone in a New York apartment in the early years of 21st century to trace the adventures of L. Murugan, who disappeared in Calcutta in 1995. The second pertains to Murugan's obsession with the missing links in the history of malaria research. The third search is that of Urmila Roy, a journalist in Calcutta in 1995, who is searching the works of Purgoni, a writer who produced a strange cycle of Lacan stories that he wrote in the 1930s but suppressed thereafter. Robert Aspling on the Calcutta chromosome opines that it's really hard to define what kind of book this is. Something like a Victorian science fiction or fiction label might somewhat come close. The story jumps back and forth in time and follows different characters, weaving everything together beautifully. In a future of Egyptian clerk named Antar in New York City bumps into a lost ID card. It belongs to a strange man that Antar met a long time ago. The man claimed to be the world authority on Ronald Ross, the man that solved the mystery with the malaria in Calcutta, 1898. While Antar digs up information about what really happened to the man, a mystery unravels, and by the time Antar finds himself involved into it, it's too late to get out. So here, how can we relate this work to the present day context is just like how this Calcutta chromosome, similar to any pandemic or epidemic, even the present day COVID-19 has impacted people across boundaries. It's not that only people belong to a particular nation are affected by it. People across boundaries are affected by it. The next topic is Glass Palace, which has a more detailed concept of nation. In this Glass Palace, what happens? A teenage boy who was working in the ship had to give up working in the ship because the ship breaks down and repairing time takes a lot of time. During that repairing time of the ship, he works in a place, especially in Burma, where he meets a girl who he falls in love with, and later the girl happens to be the maiden of the prince and the princess, but they are outcasted by the British Indian prince. So therefore, how he continues his love and what are the aspects that are involved related to the colonization are all discussed here. It was chance alone that was responsible for Rajkumar's presence in Mandalay that November morning. His boat, the Sampan, on which he worked as a helper and errand boy, had been found to need repairs after sailing up the Irrawaddy from the Bay of Bengal. The boat owner had taken fright on being told that the work might take as long as a month, possibly even longer. He couldn't afford to feed his crew that long. Therefore, he decided some of them would have to find other jobs. Therefore, he insists Rajkumar to go get some jobs, and he informs that go and meet a woman by name Macho who has Indian ancestry. And therefore, he happens to visit the city of Mandalay. And for the first time in his entire life, he is seeing land. Because throughout his life, he used to be part of the voyages. He used to spend most of his time in seas. For the first time, he sees land. And by the sides of the road, there were bamboo walled shacks and palm thatched shanties, patch of dung and piles of refuse. But the straight course of road's journey was unsmudged by the clutter that flanked it. It was like a causeway cutting across a choppy sea. Its lines led the eye right through the city, past the bright red walls of the fort to the distant pagodas of Mandalay Hill, shining like a string of white bells up on the slope. So when you compare him with other children of his age, he had traveled a lot. He had a lot of voyage experiences. The boat he worked was on coastal craft that generally kept the open waters, plying the long length of shore that joined Burma to Bengal. Rajkumar had been to Chittagong and Bassein and many number of towns and villages in between. So throughout his life he was traveling. But in all his travels he had never come across thoroughfares like those in Mandalay. He was accustomed to lanes and alleys that curled endlessly around themselves so that you could never see beyond the next door. So especially whenever you are traveling on water bodies, you don't see any boundaries. So you just find lighthouses or you just feel that you want to get into the shore. He was accustomed to lanes and alleys that curled endlessly around themselves so that you could never see beyond the next step. Here was something new, a road that followed a straight, unwavering course, bringing the horizon right into the middle of habitation. When the fort's full immensity revealed itself, Rajkumar came to halt in the middle of the road. So here, why it is named Glass Palace is, it's the Glass Palace belonged to the royal family, which is later looted by the people of the same place when British colonized them. And at the time of loot, he happens to see this girl who is of just 10 years old and falls in love with her. Later, he continues to stay there, makes profit in his timber business, and then gets to know that this princely family is deported to India, comes back to India, marries this girl. The citadel was a miracle to behold, with its mile-long walls and its immense moat. The crenellated ramparts were almost 3 stories high, but of a soaring likeness, red in color, and topped by ornamented gateways with 7-tiered roofs. Long straight roads radiated outwards from the walls, forming a neat geometrical grid. So intriguing was the ordered pattern of these streets that Rajkumar wandered from exploring. It was almost dark by the time he remembered why he had been sent to the city. He made his way back to the fort's western wall and asked for macho. So he looks for macho because the owner of the ship would have insisted him to go and meet macho so that he can get a job there. So macho learns a small eatery store where he goes and meets her. Initially, she hesitates to appoint him because saying that, do you think that I have jobs so that I can do it for you? So, and she complains that one of the person who had joined her firm or eatery had looted certain things. So there he explains, so that my ship is under repair. Therefore, the owner of the ship insisted me to meet you and ask for a job. Then he had just begun to explain about the boat and repairs and wanting a job for a few weeks when she interrupted. She began to shout at the top of her voice with her eyes closed. What do you think? I have jobs under my armpits to pluck out and hand it to you? Last week a boy ran away with 2 of my pots. Who's to tell me you won't do the same? And so on. So she was under this impression because of the bad experience that she had with the earlier employer. Rajkumar understood that his outburst was not aimed directly at him, but it had more to do with the dust, the splattering oil, the price of the vegetables, than with his own presence or with anything he had said. He lowered his eyes and stood there stoically, kicking the dust until she was done. She paused, panting, and looked him over. Where are your parents? And when he responds that he is an orphan, she sympathizes with him and hands him a job. And this is how this Rajkumar lands into a job. And while he was on part of the job, people around hear the noises of the British cannon, but they are not unaware of it. What is this sound, and where is this sound coming from? And amongst all of them, only this Rajkumar could tell. So where is this sound coming from, and what is his intention? So he says, so this is the sound of the English cannon, and they are bombing this particular place, Burma's this particular place. So everybody was shocked. So the expression is mentioned here. People looked around in bewilderment. What is it, Ballet? What can it be? And then Rajkumar's sharp, excited voice cut through the buzz of speculation. English cannon, he said, and his fluent but heavily accented Burmese. They are shooting somewhere up the river, heading in this direction. So this is the initiation of the colonization colonization of Burma by the British. There was only one person in the food stall who knew exactly what that sound was that was rolling in the across plain, along the silver curve of the Irrawaddy, to the western wall of Mandalay Fort. His name was Rajkumar and he was an Indian, a boy of 11, not an authority to be relied on. So this is how Rajkumar is described when he informs that the Britishers are bombed Burma. Frowns appeared on some customers' face as they noted that it was a serving boy who had spoken and that he was a Kala from across the sea, an Indian with teeth as white as his eyes and skin the color of polished hardwood. He was standing in the center of the stall holding a pile of chipped ceramic bombs. He was grinning a little sheepishly as though embarrassed to parade his precious knowingness. His name meant prince, but he was anything but princely in appearance, with his oil-splashed vest, the untidily knotted long hair, and his barefoot with their thick slippers of callous skin. And people asked how old he was. So he used to say, I am 15 years old, 20 years old, because he felt that since he has traveled a lot, he has a lot of experiences, and he used to feel proud about it. Then, when he was in fact not much more than a child, and even if he had said that I am 20 years old, people would have agreed to it. So now I will be discussing about the reviews of this glass palace, what many reviewers, eminent scholars have opined. In the review in the New York Times, Pankaj Mishra describes Ghosh as one of the few political post-colonial writers to have expressed in his work a developing awareness of the aspiration, defeats and disappointments of colonized peoples as they figure out their place in the world. The novel is set primarily in Burma and India and catalogues the evolving history of those regions before and during the fraught years of Second World War and India's independence struggle. Mino Proctor, another noted scholar, says, so when you read this novel, you feel that you have traveled 100 years on foot across the places of rubber plantations of Malaysia, teak forests of Burma, and bustling city streets of Rangoon, Singapore, bearing witness to the demise of the Burmese monarchy and the rise and fall of the British Empire. So though it's a printed text, it has a lot of visual aspects. You feel that you are traveling, you are visualizing what is happening there. A stately and vibrantly detailed family saga set in South Central Asia against the tumultuous backdrop of 20th century. The Glass Palace is the story of Rajkumar, an Indian sheep boy. So, as I said, the conquering British sent Burma's King Tebo and his loyal court, including the young handmaiden, whom this Rajkumar falls in love with, into exile in remote India. But Rajkumar is left behind in Burma, is adept at working the new colonial system, and he managed to build a thriving lumber business. So, he does not return back to the ship. He continues to stay in Burma and starts with the timber business. Elegantly dressed in English clothes, Rajkumar sets off to India to find Dolly. So this he does after 20 years. Okay, after he has made a lot of profits in the timber business, he gets to know that Dolly, along with the princely family, is exiled, and he wants to meet Dolly in order to marry. The only woman he ever loved. The long years in exile have devastated the royal family, leaving Dolly as their only servant. Through the wiles of the colonial administrator's wife, Umadev, Rajkumar wins an audience with Dolly and convinces her to return to Burma and marry. She agrees, and shortly after her departure, everything falls apart. So here this work also throws light on the impact that the royal family faced in the hands of the British colonization. So because prior to the British, they led a royal life, and once they were deported, they are denied of the resources, they have to lead a life of the normal people. The royal family is embroiled in scandal, the administrators commit suicide, and Uma, grieving more over the absence of her dear friend Dolly than over her husband's death, escapes the traditional life of an Indian widow and goes abroad, where she becomes a revered leader of India's bourgeois independence movement. And this is only the beginning. The story of Uma, Dolly, Rajkumar, and the children, nieces and nephews, and the children's children, nieces and nephews, takes us from the rubber boom of the industrial age to the front line of the World War II, from India's struggle for independence to Burma's fall and its transformation into Myanmar under a military dictatorship. So this entire, so here one might feel that it is a novel, but it is actually a historical representation of Burmese political aspects. Because through these characters, Amitav Ghosh portrays before us the progress of Burma or Myanmar, progress of Burma under the British rule, its impact, and to the present day Myanmar. I hope you all are aware that Burma is renamed as Myanmar. In the 5 years it took me to write The Glass Palace, recounts Ghosh. I read hundreds of books, memoirs, travelogues, gazetteers, articles and notebooks published and unpublished. I traveled thousands of miles, visiting and revisiting, so far as possible, all the settings and locations that figure in this novel. I sought out scores of people in India, Malaysia, Myanmar and Thailand. Inspired. So, when people questioned him, how is that he was able to bring in a lot of details? See, Amitav Ghosh basically happens to be from Calcutta, but he spent most of his life outside India. But when people question him, how is that he is very much aware of the extreme peculiarities, even the basic aspects of different nations. This was Amitav Ghosh's response. He said, I read a lot about Burmese history and I visited a lot of places. The places that Amitav Ghosh has mentioned in this novel, he has visited it and revisited it and interpreted it. Because of this, he could mention a lot of details about Myanmar. If any native Myanmari people, citizen of Myanmar reads this story, he feels that yes, Amitav Ghosh could be a localite. Inspired by the legends of his own ancestry, Ghosh's massive research makes for a wealth of detail. The Glass Palace is at once a gargantuan history, a family saga and an adventure story. It is so richly and compassionately rendered, you come to feel you are somehow part of its vast extended family whose story finds its humble origins in two orphans standing innocently on the threshold of the 20th century. So the two orphans that are referred to is, one is Rajkumar, okay, and the other person is Dolly, that is the maid of the princely family. Then Anirudh Singh says, the Indian author has introduced the subtle cultural differences with extreme finesse and sensitivity in his latest work. The story touches upon various aspects of the Raj race. Indian soldiers donning the British uniform, the subtle racism which existed between the locals and the foreigners, between the yellow and white, between the yellow and blue. Ma'am, am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Okay, yes. Okay. So one important aspect about that Anirudh Singh highlighted is, we Indians talk about the colonization of the British, that the Britishers colonizers and other aspects. But the problem, when you compare, when you look at it from the perspective of Burma, most of the soldiers in the British army were Indians only. So in the later part, we get to know the dilemma that the soldiers also face. Therefore, he mentions Indian soldiers donning the British uniform, the subtle racism which existed between the locals and the foreigners. So I hope you all are aware of the incidents of Mangal Pandey. Okay, it's because of the racism and other aspects that we had this Sipahi mutiny between the yellow and white, between the yellow and brown. The story of Glass Palace is based on two human groups, one stemming from the Burmese royal family from Mandalay and the other individual, an orphan called Rajkumar. Before the arrival of the British, the life in those parts existed in equilibrium. The trading mostly used to happen between neighboring countries and a little volume would be traded outside the circle. With the growth of the British dominance, the scenario changed forever. So here he also highlights the impact, the economical impact of the British colonization. So prior to that, the trade used to happen within the country, Myanmar, but after the British invasion, it started expanding. The pleasure about reading Amitav's work comes not only from the story, but the descriptions of the lifestyle, behavior of the people, the subtlety of the cultural impact, and of course, the details of the day-to-day life. See, as I mentioned in the other scholar also mentioned that one should appreciate Amitav Ghosh for his detailed aspects. And even Amitav Ghosh acknowledged that he kept on reading, visiting and revisiting places. So, see, I will read out the extract from the book where Amitav Ghosh describes the anthrax disease that has haunted the elephants there. The swellings had grown to pineapple size and the elephant's hide that began to crack and break apart. As the hours passed, the lessons grew yet larger and the cracks deepened. Soon the pustules began to leak a whitish ooze. Within a short while, the animal's hide was wet with discharge. Rivulets of blood streaked, pus began to drip to the ground. The soil around the animal's feet turned into sludge, churned with blood and ooze. So when you read out this description of Amitav Ghosh, one will feel that is Amitav Ghosh, did Amitav Ghosh study medicine, because he described the problem of anthrax in that much detail. By dramatizing the effects of the disease, the impact of the reader's mind is astounding. Amitav writes his description with the precision of medical practitioner. The king walked out of the pavilion. So another important example related to the detailing aspect of Amitav Ghosh is, let's say at the time of deportation of the king and the queen, both the king and the queen come outside of the palace, and this is what happens. The last para. Two carriages were waiting for by the east gate. Just as he was about to step in, the king noticed that the ceremonial canopy had 3 tiers, the number allotted to a nobleman, not the 9 due to the king. So he's talking about the tiers, okay, where for the king it used to be 9, but for the nobleman it used to be only 7. So even at the time of deportation only, this king of Myanmar is no more the king, he is just considered as a nobleman at the time of deportation. Moving on to the next scholar's opinion, Subhajit Ghosh. Spanning a period of about 60 years, it's a tale about 3 generations of a family and similar in some aspects to Gabriela Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude. Human emotions make the novel engaging. Love, betrayal, treachery, racism, friendship, and sacrifice pervade the unfolding of events. Romance mingles with vivid description of a war as the principal characters move from Rangoon and Mandalay in Burma to Malaya and from Ratnagiri, Calcutta, and Madras in India to the United States. His description is awesome, and he is as precise about military life as he is when he is handling erotic scenes or the make of a foreign car. Amitav's prose is captivating. Below are just 2 beautiful extracts from the book. Everything he wanted was in that place, all that he ever worked for, a lifetime's accumulation of labor, stored as a single cache of wood. He thought of the elephants and the bombs falling around them, the flames leaping from a well-stacked wood, the explosions, the trumpeting. It was he who was concentrated all his holdings in his one place. That too was part of the plan. And now the bombs have claimed it all. But it did not matter. Nothing mattered so long as Neil was unarmed. The rest were just things, possessions, but Neil. The second extract. They came across a lady one day dressed in a beautiful silk sari. So here he talks about, Amitav Ghosh talks about the impact of British invasion on the royal family. So this is the experience of one of the women belonging to the royal family. So they are moved to such a state of destitute that they are finding it difficult to have food also. They may have jewels or they may have expensive dress, but they are unable to find food. They came across a lady one day dressed in a beautiful silk sari, a peacock green kanjivaram. She looked to be from a wealthy family, but she too had run out of food. She was trying to bargain with a group of people who were sitting by a fire. Suddenly she began to undress, and when she had stripped off a sari, they saw she had others on underneath. Means she had worn multiple saris. So because that is the only thing that they can take as a possession. Beautiful rich silks worth hundreds of rupees. She offered up one of these, hoping to exchange it for a handful of food. So since she was very much hungry, did not find food, she stripped one of her sari and offered to those who had food, but nobody was ready to accept. Okay, finally what she does, the people demand, instead of giving your sari, give us firewood, give us some food. Okay, so that we can cook food for you. Then what does she do? They saw her arguing vainly with them, and then perhaps recognizing finally the worthlessness of her treasured possession, she rolled the sari into a ball and put it on the fire. The silk burnt with a crackling sound, sending out leaping flames. So finally, the philosophical message that Amitav Ghosh intends to convey here is, irrespective of the treasure that one possesses, you can't use it to barter for food. Ultimately, food is important. Flashback techniques have been used in several places. Scenes from Burmese rebellion are a recurring motif. These images are terribly disturbing and continues to haunt on those who have seen John Bowman's hard-hitting film Beyond Rangoon on the atrocities of Burmese military government. All its citizens will be considered that this resourceful land called the Golden Land, rich in precious stones, rubber, among other items, is truly in the grip of anarchy for a long time. In the last pages, havoc caused by the Japanese invasion in Burma and its effect on the army officers and the people have been penned quite forcefully. So another scholar, Amitav Ghosh, says Ghosh is one of the most sympathetic post-colonial voices to be heard today. He looks at love and loyalty and examines questions of empire and responsibility of tradition and modernity. So one thing that could be appreciated about Amitav Ghosh is he does not take any stance. He does not say whether the British did a crime or the British rule was good or the monarch's rule was good. He just gives objective information. Another scholar, Meenakshi Mukherjee, is very important. So this is a description of the glass palace. Okay, based on this description only, based on its importance only, the novel is titled. There was a fabled hall called the Glass Palace in Mandalay. before the British annexed Burma in 1885. Its walls of shining crystal and mirrored ceiling shimmered with sparks of golden light, and the lamps were lit. Situated in the spacious garden of the fort where the Burmese royal family lived, it was a dazzling emblem of the country's elegance and self-sufficiency until devastated by foreign rule. Towards the beginning of the novel, the readers are given a brief glimpse of the palace through the awestruck eyes of an 11-year-old urchin, that is Rajkumar, as it was being sacked and plundered by the local people before the British troops arrived to take possession. See, one thing you should understand here is the loyal Burmese citizens who showed their loyalty to the king and the queen, the moment they got to know that the Britishers are going to plunder Burma, they themselves attacked this glass palace and looted. During the loot, this Rajkumar finds this girl, Dolly. Just before the novel ends, the glass palace is mentioned twice. We find a young research student of Rangoon University writing a dissertation on a famous 19th century history of Burma called the Glass Palace Chronicles. Later, one of the few survivors in this vast saga of intertwining families rediscovers in the final chapter. He seemed to be running a modest photo studio called the Glass Palace, where young people, stifled by the military dictatorship of present-day Burma, gather to open their minds to discuss books, pictures, and ideas. No one is directly indicted in the novel, not a single person idealized. So this is the important characteristics of Amitav Ghosh. For all its vividness of description and range of human experiences, The Glass Palace will remain for me memorable mainly as the most scathing critique of British colonialism I have ever come across in fiction. So this is the opinion of the scholar who has conveyed his critique on this work. The unceremonious removal of the king and the pregnant queen from Mandalay. So this is very much normal for the British. They kept on deporting people. Okay, they kept on deporting people to different places so that they will lose connect with their citizens and they will lack support. So this royal family of Burmese were deported to distant Ratnagiri in the west coast of India. The reverse movement of Bahadur Shah Zafar's deportation to Rangoon a generation ago was as astute move by the conquering British, successful in humiliating the royal couple completely, also erasing them from public memory at home. The rapacity and greed inherent in the colonial process is seen concentrated in what happened in Burma, and the author does not gloss over the fact that Indians were, this is very much important. See, we all say that British colonizers, we fought for freedom and other things, but the problem is here. And Amitav Ghosh does not hide it. He says, Indians were willing collaborators in the British enterprise of depredation. Not only did 2/3 of the British army consisted of Indians when Burma was conquered, years later the Sayasan rebellion was brutally suppressed by deploying Indian soldiers. So we were Indians, we also opposed the British colonization, but on the other hand, we also perpetuated the British colonization because most of the Indians were recruited as soldiers in the British army. The novel also lays bare the process by which Indian agents become rich by transporting indentured labor to work in the plantation. See, that is how we have a lot of migrant population, Indians, in Sri Lanka, Mauritius, and other aspects, and other places. The actual protagonists in the novel are not the kings and the queens, but ordinary people, some of them orphaned or displaced, buffeted around the forces greater than themselves. There are people who have the luck to end their lives where they began, but that is not something that is owed to us. So, this is the plight of people who are part of the slave trade. So, human beings were considered as animals and they were traded to different places to work in plantations. As in other Amitav Ghosh novels, human lives spill over national boundaries, refusing to stay contained in near compartments. So the main feature of Amitav Ghosh novel is he talks about both the types of migration. One that is forced that could be of voluntary. Voluntary means where people, for example, Amitav Ghosh himself. So he studied in different places across the world. Okay, he has traveled across the world and he has stayed there. That is a voluntary one. The one that is involuntary is where people are forced. British army or the British rule forced them to, they were traded as slaves to different places. It destabilizes. A person is remembered not as Burmese, Indian, Chinese, Malay or American, but merely as Uma, Dolly, Saya, John, Alison, Dinu, Neil or Dao Tin Or. That Dinu is also called Tanpei and Neil's other name is Sengwin, further destabilizes nation-based identities. So this is what is important according to the theme of today's discussion, that is nation as an illusion. So people are not recognized as based on their citizenship or based on their affiliation to a country. They are just named according to the places they are transported to. So this is what destabilizes nation-based identities. Then the novel relates to the ethical dilemma of the Indian officer. So this is also important because all this time the impact of the British colony on the common people was discussed. Now, how did the soldiers in the British army feel? So it's discussed here. Ethical dilemma of the Indian officers in the British army, some of whom later deserted to form the Indian National Army. Prefigured in the scattered episodes involving other characters, this debate gets finally crystallized through two young officers in the first Jat Light Infantry Commission just before the Second World War. Arjun Roy and Hardawal Singh. These are the two officers in the British Army and they have their own confusions regarding their participation in the British Act. First allowing his Badranok family to join the army, Arjun is overwhelmed by its glamour, takes pride in the fact that his regiment has achieved medals for putting down the Arab rebellion in Mesopotamia and fighting the Boxer rebels in China. But it is Hardawal, born in a family which had served the army for 3 generations, who is beset by the doubt. The inscription of the military academy in Dehradun had said, the safety, honor and welfare of our country comes first, always and everywhere. See, one thing you should understand here is, the safety, honor and welfare of your country comes first, always and everywhere. During those days, what was the country? So we just had British India. India never existed as a political territory. We were under the British. So the conflict that this Hardawal had was, whom am I fighting? Am I fighting for my princely state or am I fighting for the British who themselves are colonizing us? Where was this country? They were supposed to defend. So the moral crisis comes to a head in a forest hideout in Burma where the lie injured after the Japanese attack. Hardawal confesses he cannot carry on with his divided life. So Hardawal, who happens to be from the family of military officers, feels that he has this moral dilemma that he can't fight for the British by killing his own people. It's almost as if you are fighting against yourself. This is what he felt. A scene of mob violence which was at the center of the shadow lines reappears in different contexts at least twice in the Glass Palace, foregrounding the helplessness of individuals during collective frenzy, an increasingly common feature of our time. So here also, as the main impact of colonization was, there used to be mob violence, just like how we have mob violence today on the basis of name, religion, and other aspects. So Rutsker has this opinion. When the royal family is exiled, first to Madras and then to remote coastal village between Bombay and Goa, Dolly is one of the few servants to accompany them. Her striking beauty is spotted by Rajkumar as he loots and grieves in the crowd. See, Rajkumar is not just a opposer of the British, but he also perpetuates the British ideology. They marry and settle in Rangoon. Their sons grow up with the far-flung connections and interest in the rubber plantations of Malaya, the escalating campaign for independence in India, the including British army and the complex economy of politics of Burma. See, when you consider the Rajkumar families only, where does he affiliate himself? Will he affiliate himself to Burma, Malaya or India? So that is the confusion and that is what Amitav Ghosh intends to highlight. Hira Pandey says, in the hands of Amitav Ghosh, a historian by training, an adventurous traveler and a sensitive writer of fiction, it becomes a confluence of all the three. Means the writings of Amitav Ghosh, you can find history, you can find traveling and you can see fiction, where everything is amalgamated. Ironically, it is the same as art that Rajkumar makes the destitute often so rich from trading in teak, the another king is born. See here what the observation of this scholar is, though the Britishers deported the Burmese king and the queen, there was an indirect entry of another king, that is Rajkumar, because later he made profits in the timber business and he became rich. Exile and return are thus at once a tragedy and a romance. Throughout the book, Ghosh uses one end to signal another beginning, so that at one level nothing changes and yet everything does. There is a strong suggestion of Buddhist metaphysics in this technique. Life, death, success and failure come in cycles, and Ghosh uses the conceit of pair of binoculars early in the book to sensitize the reader to this perspective. Then the violence of the war years brings sweeping changes in the lives of characters and countries alike. Ghosh brings alive the ideology of the Indian National Army that was formed by Subhash Chandra Bose to fight against the British. And in fact, the soldiers were derived from the British Army itself, the Indian soldiers. Word pictures are Ghosh forte, And he uses the character of Dino, a dedicated photographer, to imprint these on the text. Even words play a very important role. The next work is Hungry Tide. So the main focus of the Hungry Tide is how not just political aspects displace people, and how even environment and how even natural forces force people to move away from their place. So the video would have been more effective if it could be played. So here what happens is, this is because of the climate change, where shores are being flooded and people are forced to move away from the coastal areas. That is the focus of Hungry Tide. So here what happens is, people are forced to migrate due to political reasons, and they go and settling in a coastal area and in the forest by clearing the forest. And here they are haunted by the man-eater tigers and alligators, and at times they are even drowned. Apart from this, the government is also forcing them, evicting them. So the incidents the contextual incidents is the Murray Chiapi massacre incident of 1978-79 forms the background. Set in Sundarbans, the fiction revolves around P.L.E. Roy, who has Indian parents but an American upbringing, and Kanai Dutt, a businessman from Delhi. Fate makes them meet in Sundarbans, which in turn threatens the future of this untouched territory, where settlers live in fear of drowning tides and man-eating tigers. The Marichapi massacre incident of 1978-79, when West Bengal government forcibly evicted thousands of Bengali refugees who had settled on the island, forms the background for some parts of the novel. It won the 2004 Arch Crossword Book Award for fiction. Here there are no borders to divide fresh water from salt, river from sea, even land from water. So the main question that Amitav Ghosh intends to ask is, when there are no borders amongst natural forces themselves, why is that people are creating borders in the name of nation? The problem here is the West Bengal government, which happened to be a communist government, which came to power saying that the interests of the workers or the poor will be protected. The same government involves in violence, eviction of people, poor people, from this particular place. Amitav Ghosh has discovered yet another new territory, summoning a singular place from its history, language and myth, and bringing it to life. So, the scholar Supriya Chaudhary conveys her opinion. The Hungry Tide is set in the Sundarbans, the vast, intermittently submerged archipelago collection of islands, largely covered by mangrove forest that forms the delta of the Ganges as it debouches into the Bay of Bengal. The region is supposed to derive its name from the Sundari trees, as the mango is locally called in this book. Ghosh speculates on whether the name may not more simply correspond to Sundarban, beautiful forest, as many prefer to believe. 2/3 of Sundarbans are in Bangladesh and only 1/3 in India. It is a region whose fishing folk easily traverse the imaginary boundaries. See, another important aspect, how nation is an illusion, because many times we have come across this in the newspaper where Indian fishermen have crossed the Sri Lankan territorial waters and they are being arrested. So, for these people, boundaries are imaginary. Say they actually do not feel it. It is a region whose fishing folk easily traverse the imaginary boundaries of the modern nation state, crossing as the wind and the tides take them, the mouths of the many river channels that set up a unique turbulence of fresh and salt water washing the islands of the archipelago. At the heart of Nimal's diary is an historical event, the eviction of refugee settlers from the island of Maurijapi in Sundarbans by the left-front government of West Bengal in 1979. For the old communists in the novel, like many others at the time, this act of state violence was a betrayal of everything left-wing politics in the post-partition era had stood for. So this is the dilemma that he talks about. The government that came in the name of people only erected them. Then Ghosh makes us aware of the sedimentation of human history, the layers of past knowledge, experience and memory that constitute our human sense of place. Some Bengali reviewers of the Hungry Tide have already asserted that their experience of reading it was like that of reading a novel in Bangla. This claim seems to be mistaken. Rather, the novel seems to push us into the crisis of the heart of translation, the paradox of representation itself. At one level, everything in the novel is translated in that it seeks to represent, in English, a life, a culture that is experienced principally through the medium of Bangla and the local variants. Then, moving on to the second para, Nirmal thinking of the necessity that compels the refugees to clear the forest and till the land on Maurijapi, as of honey collectors and woodcutters who go into the forest and are eaten by tigers and crocodiles, Also asks a question central to novel's concern. Whose is his land, nature's or man's? So this is also an important one. So primarily, Amitav Ghosh seems to question the very formation of boundaries of nations. He intends to convey that boundaries are just for administrative purpose, and when it comes to nature or when it comes to people who are not at all touched by the political aspects, they don't need any boundaries as such. Therefore, this question is keeps on haunting such people. Whose is his land, nature's or man's? This is the context of attack by man-eating tigers and crocodiles. It is a question that cannot be answered, not even by the idealizing solution of coexistence. Pia is ultimately too practical and obsessive to bother with large answers. Nirma is overcome by the very effort of posing the question. Then it is the tone of the novel, alternately poetic, scientific, and businesslike, that may suggest the nature of Ghosh's own thought on this subject. Besides the manifest threat posed by human settlement to the unique direct of aquatic and terrestrial life in the mangrove swamps of the Sundarbans, besides the constant depletion of aquatic species by fishing and trawling, there are equal dangers for the human settlers. Not only does the forest take its toll, the tides too. That is the reason why it is called as the hungry tide. Because many times people will be sleeping at night, and just like the example of the tsunami, just like how it killed plenty of people, similarly people in the coastal areas are killed during those days also. Tides too exact their revenge. The constant erosion of dikes and embankments, the silting up of channels, the flooding of storm waters make human life on the islands no more, in the last analysis, that an accident or miracle. It was on such miracles that the hopes of visionaries like Daniel Hamilton or the settlers of Morizapi were found. Ghosh's critique of past and present mistakes, whether administrative or political, is at all times rooted and rested. So another important feature of Amitav Ghosh is he does not make a direct critique on the political or administrative aspects. He just portrays it as it is. It is left for the reader to find it. And this is the expression. The second para focus on the experience of the scholar. She says, we saw no tigers and escaped the more common scourges of snakebite and diarrhea. So the impact of the intervention of government and forest department is so much devastating that they don't even see tigers because of the destruction of their habitat. It offers the sense of place whose history, partly known, partly guessed at, can illuminate the ways in which human beings have lived on this earth and made use of these fruits. Then moving to Sea of Poppies. So this is first of the Ibis trilogy. To write this Ibis trilogy, Amitav Ghosh moved to India, and here he talks about, he writes his work. So it's a continuation. So it's set in 1830s, just before the Opium War, which encapsulates the colonial history of the East. The Sea of Poppies was shortlisted for the 2008 Man Booker Prize. First in the Ibis trilogy, the book is based on a bunch of sailors, convicts and coolies who are sailing down the Hooghly on their way to Mauritius aboard the Ibis. So people are on a slave trade. They are being transported to Mauritius to work on the sugarcane fields. So where these people do not have an identity, because the people across Indian subcontinent are taken and they are either deported as a punishment or either taken as as slaves. So here, what is their identity? He says their identity is that of ship brothers. Here, I have highlighted here. As their old family ties are washed away, they, like their historical counterparts, come to view themselves as Jahaj Bais. Jahaj ship, Bais means brothers. So that is their only identity. That is ship brothers. In his diary, Grayson wrote about an encounter with the father of one female coolie in a village along the Ganges, noting that the man denied having any such relative and probably she had gone wrong and been disowned by him. The historical record provides only a trace of this woman, a name, a processing number, a year of emigration. So even people are also very much accustomed. There were a lot of complaints against the British government that people are illegally transported to different places. Then the British Crown sends this Grayson to have an inquiry, and he finds that the father of the female coolie refuses to reveal the name of his daughter. He says that I don't have any such relative. She could be missing. In this ambitious new novel, Sea of Poppies, Amitav Ghosh attempts to fill the blanks left by archives. Set partly in Bengal, the scene of Grayson's inquiry and drawing on accounts the Englishman left, it opens in 1838 on the eve of Opium Wars. A former slave ship called the Ibis had been refitted to transport coolies from Calcutta to sugarcane estates of Mauritius. And for hundreds of pages, we watch as its crew and passengers are slowly assembled until it finally gets on its way. So here, another important aspect of Sea of Poppies is it's not just a created one, it's not fictional aspects. There are a lot of non-fictional aspects also. There are truth also. So because normal man could not even think of such type of people who are being migrated. Since Amitav Ghosh read a lot about the archives available in the government departments and kept on visiting and revisiting places, discussing with people, he, he could highlight on this. Ghosh is forced to imagine them based on the limited resources available, but it does so with the instincts of an anthropologist more than a novelist. So, on the one hand, we can see many aspects of Ghosh, multifaceted aspect of Ghosh. One is that of a historian, one is that of a humanitarian, other is that of an anthropologist. Because we find such minute details. Many of the women who fled India as coolies were indeed upper caste widows, but there were no brownie heroes to snatch them from their fates. So he says this migration or slave trade proved to be a boon for some people, especially the widows, where they were treated, where they were ill-treated in their homeland or in their family. They had nowhere to go. They used to be part of this slave trade. Wading the Ganges at the novel start, she envisions a ship like a great bird with sails like wings and long break. So this is the opinion of one of the character here. Though she has never before laid eyes on a schooner like the Ibis, she somehow knows that it is coming for her. At the novel's close, lying one night on the deck of its same vessel, she holds a poppy seed between her fingers. Here she tells to her lover, "Taste it. It is a star that took us from our homes and put us on the ship." So here Amitav Ghosh talks about the positive aspects of this slave trade. So these people who are outcasted by the village authorities for being part in the love affair, they find this as a solace to escape from the punishment. It is a planet that rules our destiny. There are pretty lines, but they don't ring true. Ghost still seems to be chasing DT's ghost in the archives. Next is the River of Smoke. So here in the River of Smoke, set in September 1838, a storm blows up on the Indian Ocean, and the Ibis, a ship carrying a consignment of convicts and indentured laborers from Calcutta to Mauritius, it's a continuation. The Ibis trilogy is a continuation. It's caught up in the whirlwind when the seas settle. 5 men have disappeared, 2 lascars, 2 convicts, and 1 of the passengers. With the same storm upend the fortunes of those aboard the Anahita, an opium carrier heading towards Canton. And what fate befell those aboard the Redruth, a sturdy 2-masted brig heading east out of Cornwall? Was it the storm that altered their course, or were the destinies of these passengers at the mercy of even more powerful forces? You see, many a times, even at the time of voyage itself, many used to lose their life. Then, moving on to the second para here. On the grand scale of the historic epic, River of Smoke follows its storm-tossed characters to the crowded harbors of China. There, despite efforts of the emperor to stop them, ships from Europe and India exchange their cargoes of opium for boxes, tea, silk, porcelain, and silver. Among them are Baram Modi, a wealthy Parsi opium merchant out of Bombay, his estranged half-Chinese son, Arthur. So here also, see, even in Indian coastal areas, there are many people who are born out of this merchant class, where people from various countries came to India and established their families here. Similarly, here also, people who migrated to the Chinese part had established families and had children out of interracial marriages. All struggled to cope with their losses, and for some, unimaginable freedoms in the alleys and crowded waterways of 19th century Canton. As transporting and mesmerizing as an opiate-induced dream, River of Smoke will soon be heralded as a masterpiece of 21st century literature. Amitav Ghosh River of Smoke, stormy sequel, doesn't disappoint the reader. Then the novel celebrates the joys of cultural and culinary mingling, the mongrelization of language in the forms of Pidgin and Creole. See, this Pidgin and Creole refers to people, children born out of interracial marriages, and the mixing of people across old barriers of acceptable sexual and racial intercourse. See, only in Indian cultural setup we come across these barriers for marrying outside one's caste or marrying outside one's religion, whereas in the advanced countries, be it in US, Europe, we have the American Vice President Kamala Harris, who is a product of interracial marriages. She has, from a mother side, she's of an Indian origin, and the father side, she's from of African origin. So there they accept. And it's a marvelous tamasha that keeps the common people busy so that men like ourselves can take care of all the matters of importance. I hope one day India will also be able to enjoy these advantages, and China too, of course. So this is said in the context of Ghosh's historical judgments are largely rendered subtly without any of the sledgehammer effect of the retrospective moralism that a lesser writer might have employed. But is not about the occasional anachronistic cynicism. Democracy is a wonderful thing. Baram observes to a British merchant. So here he also conveys a critique of democracy where it is being misused. In the name of democracy, some people are taking the advantage. So the final part of the Ibis trilogy is The Flood of Fire. Here it is published it is set in 1839, and tension has been rapidly mounting between India and British India following the crackdown on opium smuggling by Beijing. With no resolution in sight, the colonial government declares war. One of the vessels requisitioned for the attack, the Hind, travels eastwards from Bengal to China, sailing into the midst of First Opium War. The turbulent voyage brings together a diverse group of travelers, each with their own agenda to pursue. Among them is Kesari Singh, a Havildar in the East India Company, who leads a company of Indian sepoys, Zachary Reed, an impoverished young sailor searching for his lost love, and Shireen Modi, a determined widow en route to China to reclaim her opium trader's husband's wealth and reputation. Flood of Fires follows a varied cast of characters from India to China through the outbreak of the First Opium War and China's devastating defeat to Britain's seizure of Hong Kong. So even today, there is a problem with Hong Kong. Okay, Chinese, they say Hong Kong was given on lease for 100 years, and after that, the question is still in dispute. China still claims to have power over Hong Kong, but people in Hong Kong oppose it. So this is the opinions on this work, the final volume of perhaps the most ambitious literary project ever taken by an Indian author. And the new criterion says, Ghosh's craftsmanship reaches an apex in his epic Ibis trilogy. It's like dipping into an Asian war and peace and occasionally discovering the circuitous intricacies of Henry James. Then finally, moving on to his last work, that is The Gun Island. It was published in 2019. On the visit to his birthplace, Kolkata, a Brooklyn-based dealer in rare books finds his life becoming entangled unexpectedly with an ancient legend about the goddess of snakes, Manasa Devi, while visiting a temple deep within the vast mangrove forest of Bengal. He has a disturbing encounter with the most feared and revered of Indian snakes, a king cobra. This is followed by a series of increasingly uncanny episodes that seem to dissolve the borders of the human and non-human. People with a diverse cast of characters and set in places that range from the Sundarbans to Los Angeles and Venice. This is a story about a world in which creatures and beings of every kind have been torn loose from their accustomed homes by the catastrophic processes of displacement that are now unfolding across the earth at an ever-increasing pace. It is also a story about a man whose faith in the world is restored by two remarkable women. The work dealing with climate change and human migration drew praise from critics. The Guardian, however, noted Ghosh's tendency to go on tangents, calling it a shaggy dog story that can take a very roundabout path towards reality, but it will get there in the end. So this is how one could conclude the works of Amitav Ghosh in terms of a nation as an illusion in the works of Amitav Ghosh. The novels brought the trauma of partition, angst of the people about the future, socio-political intricacies of the nation-state. It narrated the pitfalls of imperialism and it ravages on the individuals, communities, and nations. Through his fiction, Amitav Ghosh made an outstanding plea for human dimension beyond the boundaries of community, ethnicity, and nationality. So today, let's say in another 20 years, even Indian cultural setup may be acceptable to this kind of interracial or thinking beyond the boundaries. While the Circle of Reason deconstructed the myth of nation and its attributes, the Shadow Lines dealt with the formation of nation-states in the subcontinent and elements of violence and bloodshed engendered in their making and aftermath. The Glass Palace, a literary critique of imperialism of the East and the West, narratively organized the diasporic and migrant experiences of the natives in the offshoot of imperial encroachment of Myanmar and development of nationalist upheaval in the subcontinent. The novels fictionalized the different facets of nationalist consciousness. Fictionalized in the sense, it questioned in what extent, to what extent you call yourself as a nationalist and you call yourself belong to one particular country. They unfurled the evolution and growth of the nation in the early stages. They also showed the manifestation of tensions within various constituents of the nation state in the complex and often uncomfortable journey of the nation into the 80s and 90s. Ghosh's continuous quest for a settled definition of being from its forgotten interior. So the Ghosh here keeps on questioning to what extent you belong to your nation when people are moving to different countries, either voluntarily or involuntarily. So these are my references and these are some of the YouTube links. Well, if I have time, can I play some of the YouTube videos? I will try. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I will play some of the YouTube videos if I have time. I will try to play.
Yes, sir. But you give the link. I will post it in the group and also in the chat box.
Sure.
Because the time is already 5:51.
Okay.